Hey everyone, we're having a heat wave here in the UK, but today we're going to find out how hot your mixes are. Sorry for the cheesy link, but yeah, we're talking about the K-meter and a way of measuring how hot to make your mixes when you're working on them in Mixbus or any other DAW. So let's go and have a look at the K-meter. Hey, so we're in Mixbus. I'm using Mixbus Standard Flavor version 4, which is what comes with Russell Cottier Mix Bundle. If you're a 32C user, that's equally fine. The principles are the same. And if you use a different DAW from another manufacturer, don't run away. Stay with us. We do like you, really, honestly. You may have K-metering on your DAW, you may not. If you don't, get yourself a plugin, a K-meter plugin, and I would recommend the Meter Plugs K-meter plugin. If you haven't got the budget for a K-meter plugin, that's fine. You can use an RMS meter, although it's not ideal, and you'll understand why by the end of this video and how to sort of play along with an RMS meter if you need to. So what is the K-meter? Well, we've all seen it, haven't we? It's this loudness meter in the master channel, and most of us are probably using it in the way that it was not intended. Most of us are probably using it it's just a loudness meter, where we can, we'll probably aim for around this 0 point with our mixes, and if we're below, we'll probably just boost the volume here. If we're above, we'll probably just take the master fader down. And I think that's how most folks are using the K-meter in Mixbus. But that's not what it was intended for, really. The K-meter is part of a two-pronged system that was developed by the mastering engineer, educator, author, nice guy, Bob Katz. He'd noticed that engineers were pushing their average levels closer and closer to 0 decibels full scale, resulting in clipping into sample peaks, forcing them to do heavy limiting and compression to try and get closer to this 0 decibels full scale point with their average level. Now, that's ridiculous because we don't have noise floor problems in digital audio like we used to in analog audio, so we don't need to push our levels so hard, so high to get away from the noise floor. So he suggested, well, what if we took an arbitrary level below full scale and called that 0? And then people will be inclined to mix or master towards that 0 point. And you know what? You've probably been doing that. You've probably looked at this K-meter and gone, oh, well, I'll aim for that 0 point because that's green and this bit's yellow. And yeah, so it's kind of worked, hasn't it? But Katz also had this other idea, the other half of the system, which was to calibrate the monitor levels. Now, he suggested 3 different calibration levels for K-metering. K20, where the 0 point is at minus 20 decibels full scale. K12, where the 0 point is at minus 12. And K14, where the 0 point is at minus 14 decibels full scale. And it's the K14 meter that we have on our master channel. Now, that can't be changed in Mixbus, but if we right click on this meter up here, we can go to K20. K20 is the system that I would use for mixing because it gives us the maximum amount of headroom and it discourages us from over-compressing and distorting our mixes. By the way, if you use the meter bridge, you just need to right click and there you go. You can choose K20. So we have a slight issue, don't we? Because this meter, this K-meter here, is locked at K14. And we've decided that we're going to mix using K20. So we just need to have this in our minds that we want to aim for minus 6 on the K14 meter. I know it's awkward, but when you're mixing, because we want to keep our mixes and our masters in separate projects. I've talked about that elsewhere and why that's absolutely fundamentally important. But we want to keep a mix as just a mix session and a master session as a mastering session. So when we're working to K20, let's imagine somewhere around here is our 0 point. Okay, so how do we calibrate our monitors to this standard volume at K20? Well, first things first, we need to go to digido.com and get some pink noise. Digido.com is, I'll put the link below, is Bobcat's website. You'll need to sign up and download his pink noise file from the downloads section. Why use this pink noise when you've got a pink noise plugin? Well, this is really well calibrated pink noise. So, I've downloaded this pink noise and I have pulled it in and I'm just going to play it to you. There we go. So that's what we've been given, uncorrelated pink noise. Now let's have a look at what happens to the K meter when we play this pink noise back. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's hovering around the -6 point because this pink noise is calibrated to -20 decibels full scale. So of course, our K meter is going to hover at -6 because we've got 20 decibels above -6 to 0 dB full scale. If we look, let's bring up the meter bridge and look at this on a K20 meter. You'll see when I press play that we go to the 0 point. Great. So, if we could change this meter to K20, that would be ideal for mixing, but we can't at the moment. So we just have to think, as I've said, we just have to think of zeros being here for now. K14 is incredibly useful for doing masters, and we'll talk about that at another point. So how do we then go about outputting this pink noise and calibrating our monitors? Well, it's easy. We use an app, and I use Decibel 10th on my iPhone. If you have an Android phone or tablet or something, then there are lots of different manufacturers. So you might find it more difficult to find a reliable SPL meter. I've been using this app since my iPhone 4, and I'm on the 7 now. And I've tried it up against real SPL meters, and do you know what? It's close enough. And because I use the same system whatever studio I go to. I just whip my phone out of my pocket and I calibrate to that level. It's always the same. So that's the level I'm used to, and I know how things should sound at that level. So let's have a close look at the app and see how to operate that. So we are over at the Decibel 10th app, and I've been using this since the iPhone 4. I'm on the iPhone 7 now, and it's been really good. Pretty accurate considering it's a phone and when I've tried it against other SPL meters. So we're going to settings here and make sure our speed, our response time is set to slow. So we'll just make sure that's set on slow. Obviously it is. Type you can select from different types, but we want C. And we go back to the front panel and we can see, we're mainly looking at this needle reading here, but we also have some other information if we click here on the pop-up. But today we're really going to be looking at the needle and the orange readout. We're going to aim for 83 dB with this pink noise for setting up K20. That's for mixing, remember, not mastering. We want to use K14 for mastering, really. So, I hope that made sense. Now, what we need to do is play back our pink noise through one speaker at a time, put the phone in the listening position with the microphone pointing upwards, and change our power amp volumes so we get a reading of 83 decibels, C-weighted. Okay, so let's do that. So how do we mute our right speaker and start with the left? Well, we just go in here, we go mute, and we click right. If you don't see this panel, click Mon. And if you don't see the Mon button, all you need to do is go to Session, Properties, Monitoring, and click this Use Monitor section in this session. And that will add that monitor button. So we just play back. I'm going to play back the pink noise, and I am going to adjust my level on my power amp so my dB meter reads at 83, or as close to 83 as I can get it. Great. Now I'm going to do the same with the right speaker. Now, those of you who are super familiar with the K system will know that sometimes you need to do a little bit of adjustment for near field monitors because they tend to appear 2 to 3 decibels louder than your midfields. And I would recommend doing this on all of your monitors. If you do notice a massive difference between your near field and your midfields, if you've got midfields, then you might just want to trim down by a couple of dB on your near fields because they will feel significantly louder, especially if they're less full range. You know, they're not full range speakers. So now basically we've got our system calibrated. So what does this mean? Well, it means that we're going to mix and it's going to become uncomfortable. It's going to become difficult because you'll notice that your power amp is turned up pretty loud. It's going to become uncomfortable for us to push our tracks too loud. So what does that mean? It means we keep our average levels at a reasonable level and we have as much punch as we want. We've got 20 decibels of headroom punch that we can have. You know, our transients can poke out up to 20 decibels before they start distorting. Now that's way more than you need. In mastering, we'll usually run to around 14 decibels and hence why the K14 meter is there and is so useful. Now, this is not to say that we can't change our master volume, and our monitor system has stepped output choices. We can move up and down, but we have a point we can come back to where we always know that we're in the Fletcher-Munson equal loudness curve sweet spot. We're not going to push our mixes too loud or too hot. We're not going to over compress because we're not trying to get too loud. We like to, you know, it's going to be uncomfortable to mix at a level that is too loud. And that's the wonder of the K system. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm in a small mix room and I'm generally working on my near fields and they're pretty pokey. They're kind of like NS10s with a bit more extended bass. So I generally actually work at 6 dB below the 83 dB. And I choose that on the monitor option here. But I can always jump back up to 0 and just compare. I can compare with you know, commercial tracks and feel the punch. And honestly, you will start producing much better mixes that come out much cleaner, not over compressed at the mix stage, and your EQ balance will be better because you're sitting in that sweet spot of the equal loudness curves. Now, again, if you need to do really fine tuning on the vocals, for instance, vocal leveling and so on, then feel free to drop your monitor level right down. That's not a problem. But so long as you've got a place where you can come back to at the 0 point and it's calibrated, that's what this K system is all about. So just to recap, we need to go to digido.com and get the pink noise. We need to install a sound pressure level app on our phones, or if you've got an SPL meter, that's even better. We need to calibrate each monitor to 83 dB C-weighted. We can trim down if we find it uncomfortable in the room, and then we just mix. We don't even need to look at the meter because we will know when we're pushing too loud. Now, there are mastering applications for this as well, and we'll talk about that maybe in another video. Again, if you know about the K system, I know I've skipped over a few little tiny points, but I hope this has given all of you guys an insight into what this K meter actually is, and that we should probably be aiming to hit around here rather than here for most of our mixes, especially, you know, when we are calibrated in the room to a specific volume. Okay, guys and girls, hope you enjoyed that. Any questions, stick them in the comments down below and I'll try and get around to answering them. And I'll see you next time. Happy calibrated mixing.